Grease-stained hands gripped the wrench tightly as Zara Novak tightened the last bolt on a hyperdrive manifold. The aging freighter's engine room hummed with a cacophony of whirs, clicks, and hisses, a symphony of barely functioning machinery that had become all too familiar over the past few years. "There," Zara muttered, wiping sweat from her brow with the back of her hand. "That should hold for another few parsecs at least." As if on cue, the ship's ancient comm system crackled to life. "Novak, get your ass up to the docking bay. We've got a customer." Zara sighed, tossing her tools into a battered toolbox. Customers were rare enough these days that even Captain Grex's abrasive tone couldn't dampen her curiosity. She made her way through the labyrinth of corridors, each step accompanied by the groan of metal that had seen far better days. The docking bay's massive doors creaked open, revealing a sleek vessel that looked wildly out of place next to their rust bucket of a ship. Its silver hull gleamed under the harsh bay lights, unmarred by the scars of long-haul space travel. "Well, I'll be damned," Zara whispered, her eyes widening as a figure emerged from the ship. The alien that glided down the ramp was unlike any Zara had encountered in her years of drifting through the galaxy's outer rim. Tall and lithe, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian, the being exuded an aura of quiet authority. Four arms moved with fluid grace, while eyes that seemed to hold the depths of space itself fixed upon Zara with unnerving intensity. "Greetings." The alien's voice was melodious, with an undertone that sent a shiver down Zara's spine. "I am Sarlith, emissary of the Galactic Consortium. I seek the services of Zara Novak." Zara blinked, suddenly acutely aware of the grease stains on her coveralls and the tangles in her unkempt hair. "Ah, that's me. What can I do for you, emissary?" Sarlith's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "I have a proposition for you, Zara Novak. One that could change the course of your life, and potentially the fate of the galaxy itself." Captain Grex, a portly Thraxian with mottled green skin, waddled forward. "Now hold on just a minute. Whatever business you've got, it goes through me first. I'm the captain of this vessel, and Novak here is under contract." Sarlith's gaze flickered to Grex, and Zara could have sworn the temperature in the docking bay dropped by several degrees. "I assure you, Captain, your cooperation will be generously rewarded. However, this matter requires a private discussion with Ms. Novak." Before Grex could protest further, Sarlith produced a small device from within the folds of their shimmering robe. With a flick of a finger, a holographic display sprang to life, scrolling with figures that made even the greedy captain's eyes bulge. "I trust this will suffice as a gesture of good faith." Sarlith's tone left no room for argument. Grex's mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to sputter. "Right, yes. Of course, Novak, you heard the emissary. Private discussion. Use my office if you need to." As Grex scurried away, Zara found herself alone with the enigmatic alien. "So," she said, attempting to sound more confident than she felt, "what's this life-changing proposition of yours?" Sarlith's eyes seemed to bore into her very soul. "Tell me, Zara Novak, how would you like to save an empire?" Zara barked out a laugh. "Save an empire? Look, I'm flattered, but I'm just a mechanic. I fix ships, not political crises." "Precisely," Sarlith nodded, as if Zara's response confirmed something. "Your skills as a mechanic are impressive, but it is your humanity that interests me most. Your species has a remarkable ability to adapt, to think creatively in the face of adversity. It is a quality sorely needed in the heart of the Galactic Consortium." Zara's brow furrowed. "I'm not following. What exactly are you asking me to do?" Sarlith's next words sent Zara's world spinning. "I need you to pose as my mate at a crucial diplomatic function. The fate of my people, and the stability of the entire consortium, may depend on it." For a moment, Zara could only stare in stunned silence. Then 1,000 questions tumbled from her lips. "Your mate? But we're different species. And why me? Surely there are better qualified candidates. What about the consortium? Why is this so important? Axarlith held up a hand, stemming the tide of inquiries. All will be explained in due time. For now, know that your unique perspective as an outsider, combined with your technical expertise, makes you ideally suited for this task. As for compensation, the alien produced another holographic display, this one showing a figure that made Zara's heart skip a beat. That's more money than I've seen in my entire life, Zara breathed. It is a fraction of what you would be owed upon successful completion of this mission, Salith stated matter-of-factly. In addition, you would have the gratitude of my people and the opportunity to shape the future of galactic politics. Zara's mind raced. It was insane, of course. Crazy to even consider abandoning everything she knew to gallivant across the galaxy on some mysterious diplomatic mission. And yet, she looked around the dingy docking bay at the patchwork repairs holding their ship together by sheer force of will. Was this really all she wanted from life? When do we leave? The words were out of Zara's mouth before she fully realized she'd made a decision. Salith's eyes seemed to glow with an inner light. Immediately. Pack only what you can carry. Where we're going, you'll have little need for material possessions. As Zara hurried to her quarters, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just set in motion events that would change not only her life, but the course of galactic history itself. Little did she know just how right she was. The transition from the rickety freighter to Salith's sleek diplomatic vessel was jarring. Zara found herself surrounded by technology that made her beloved engines look like children's toys. As they prepared for departure, she couldn't help but run her fingers along the smooth, almost organic-looking control panels. Impressed, Axarlith's melodious voice carried a hint of amusement. Zara nodded, not bothering to hide her wonder. I've never seen anything like this. The energy output must be astronomical. Indeed, this ship is powered by a miniature quantum singularity, Axarlith explained, gesturing to a pulsing orb at the center of the bridge. It allows us to traverse vast distances in the blink of an eye. As if on cue, the stars outside the viewport blurred into streaks of light. Zara's stomach lurched as the ship accelerated to speeds she hadn't thought possible. When her vision cleared, she gasped. The familiar constellations of the outer rim had been replaced by a dense sea of stars, at the center of which hung a massive structure that defied description. Welcome, Aleph said, to the nexus of the Galactic Consortium. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Zara found herself whisked through gleaming corridors, past beings of every conceivable shape and size. Salith moved with purpose, fielding questions and greetings from a parade of officials and diplomats. Finally, they arrived at a private chamber. As the door sealed behind them, Salith's posture visibly relaxed. Now, the alien said, turning to face Zara, I owe you a full explanation. Zara sank into a chair that seemed to mold itself to her body. I'm all ears. Salith's eyes flickered with an emotion Zara couldn't quite place. The Galactic Consortium stands at a crossroads. For millennia, we have maintained peace through a delicate balance of power between the major species, but that balance is shifting. A holographic display sprang to life, showing a tapestry of interconnected worlds. My people, the Zinthar, have long been mediators in the consortium. Our unique abilities allow us to sense the emotions and intentions of others, making us ideal diplomats. But, Zara prompted, sensing the weight behind Salith's words. But we are dying out, Salith said softly. Our birth rates have plummeted, and with them, our influence in the consortium. There are those who would exploit this weakness, pushing for a more militaristic approach to galactic governance. Zara frowned. And where do I fit into all this? Salith's next words sent a chill down her spine. You, Zara Novak, are to be my salvation, and by extension, the salvation of the consortium itself. The alien's form shimmered like heat waves rising from sun-baked metal. When it solidified, Zara found herself face to face with herself, or rather, a perfect alien replica of herself. What there? Zara stumbled back, her mind reeling. We Synthar are shapeshifters, Xalith explained, voice now identical to Zara's own. It is a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few within the consortium. This ability has allowed us to navigate the complex web of interspecies politics for generations. Xalith shifted back to their original form, but our numbers are few, and the strain of maintaining these forms grows with each passing cycle. We need an infusion of new genetic material, specifically human DNA. Wait, Zara held up a hand, her mind racing to keep up. Are you saying you want to breed with humans? Xalith nodded. Your species' adaptability, combined with our shape-shifting abilities, could produce offspring capable of securing our place in the consortium for generations to come. But such a union must be handled delicately. The other species cannot know the true nature of our abilities or the precariousness of our position. So you need me to pose as your mate, Zara said slowly, the pieces falling into place. To make it seem like a natural alliance rather than a desperate gambit. Precisely, Salith confirmed. The upcoming Centennial Conclave is our best opportunity. Representatives from every major species will be in attendance. If we can convince them of the viability and benefits of human-Zinthor relations, it could change the course of galactic history. Zora's head spun with the implications. She was no politician, no diplomat. She was a mechanic from the fringes of known space, suddenly thrust into a game with stakes higher than she could have imagined. And yet, the challenge thrilled her in a way she hadn't felt in years. "All right," she said, squaring her shoulders. "What's our first move?" Salith's eyes gleamed with approval. "First, we must transform you from a ship's mechanic into a figure worthy of standing beside a Zinthar emissary. Your technical knowledge will be invaluable, but you must also learn the intricacies of consortium politics, the customs of a dozen different species, and the art of diplomatic double-speak." "Sounds like a tall order," Zara mused. "How long do we have?" "The conclave begins in 3 standard cycles," Salith replied. "It will be a grueling process, but I have faith in your abilities, Zara Novak. Together, we may yet save my people and preserve the peace of the galaxy." As Salith outlined their intensive training regimen, Zara felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had come seeking adventure and purpose beyond the confines of her old life. Now it seemed, the fate of entire civilizations rested on her shoulders. Well, she thought, a wry smile tugging at her lips, no pressure or anything. Little did she know the true challenges and dangers of her new role were only beginning to unfold. The next 3 cycles passed in a whirlwind of activity. Zora's days were filled with endless lessons on galactic politics, etiquette, and the intricate dance of interspecies diplomacy. Her nights were spent poring over technical manuals, absorbing centuries of technological advancements in a matter of weeks. Salith proved to be a demanding but patient teacher. The Zinthar's ability to shapeshift came in handy during their lessons, as they could demonstrate the proper mannerisms and customs of various species firsthand. No, Salith sighed, currently in the form of a towering 4-armed Quarian. The greeting must be more fluid, like this. They demonstrated the elaborate arm movements again, appendages weaving through the air in a hypnotic pattern. Zara gritted her teeth and tried again, her muscles protesting after hours of repetition. How many more species do I need to memorize greetings for? Salith shifted back to their natural form, eyes twinkling with amusement. Only another dozen or so. But don't worry, you're making remarkable progress. As exhausting as the training was, Zara found herself oddly invigorated. She had always prided herself on her ability to solve complex mechanical problems, but this was a challenge on a whole new level, and with each passing day, she felt more at home in this world of high-stakes diplomacy and cutting-edge technology. One evening, as they took a rare break to enjoy a meal together, Zara broached a subject that had been nagging at her. "Salith, there's something I don't understand. If your people are shapeshifters, why do you need me at all? Couldn't you just create a human form and pretend to be your own mate? Sarlith's expression grew somber. A fair question. The truth is, maintaining a shifted form for extended periods is taxing, physically and mentally. And at an event as crucial as the Centennial Conclave, we cannot risk even a moment of slipping. Your presence provides authenticity that we simply cannot fabricate. Zara nodded, sensing there was more to it than Sarlith was letting on. But before she could press further, an alarm blared through the chamber. Sarlith was on their feet in an instant, moving to a nearby console. Curious. We're receiving an encrypted transmission from within the Nexus itself. As Sarlith worked to decode the message, Zara felt a prickle of unease. Something about this felt off. Suddenly, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing a face that made Sarlith gasp. The being looked similar to Sarlith, but older, with deep lines etched into their obsidian skin. High Counselor Vex Aura, Sarlith breathed, quickly bowing. To what do we owe this honor? The elderly Zinthar's eyes narrowed. Spare me the pleasantries, Sarlith. I've just received some disturbing reports about your recent activities. An unscheduled trip to the Outer Rim. A human brought into the heart of the Nexus without proper clearance. Explain yourself. Sarlith's composure never wavered, but Zara could sense the tension radiating from them. High Counselor, I assure you, everything is proceeding according to plan. The human's presence is crucial to our strategy for the Conclave. Vexara's gaze shifted to Zara, who fought the urge to squirm under the intense scrutiny. And does this human understand the true nature of her role? The risks involved. Before Sarlith could intervene, Zara stepped forward. With all due respect, High Counselor, I'm right here. And while I may not understand everything yet, I'm committed to seeing this through. For the sake of the Zinthar and the stability of the consortium. A tense silence followed her words. Then, to Zara's surprise, Vexara's stern expression softened slightly. Well spoken, human. Perhaps Sarlith's faith in you is not misplaced after all. But be warned, the game you've entered is far more dangerous than you realize. There are forces at work here that would see the consortium torn apart for their own gain. Sarlith nodded gravely. We are aware of the opposition, High Counselor. Rest assured, we will not fail. See that you don't, Vexara replied, their tone leaving no room for argument. The future of our people hangs in the balance, and Sarlith, watch your back. Not all threats come from outside the Zinthar ranks. With that ominous warning, the transmission cut off. As the holographic display faded, Zara turned to Sarlith, her mind reeling. Okay, I think it's time for some straight answers. What exactly have you gotten me into? And what did Vexara mean about threats from within your own people? Sarlith's shoulders sagged, as if a great weight had settled upon them. You're right. You deserve to know the full truth. They gestured for Zara to sit, their eyes filled with a mix of determination and something that looked almost like fear. The Zinthar are not as united as we appear to the outside world, Sarlith began. There is a growing faction within our ranks who believe that our traditional role as mediators has made us weak. They advocate for a more aggressive approach to maintaining our position in the consortium. Zara frowned. And I'm guessing they're not too keen on the idea of integrating human DNA into the Zinthar gene pool. Precisely, Sarlith nodded. They see it as a dilution of our purity, a sign of desperation. But more than that, they fear what such a union could mean for the balance of power within the consortium. Humans, with your adaptability and ingenuity, combined with our shape-shifting abilities, it could create a new breed of diplomat unlike anything the galaxy has seen. And that scares them, Zara finished, the pieces falling into place. It terrifies them, Sarlith corrected, enough that they might take drastic action to prevent it from happening. The weight of Sarlith's words hung heavy in the air. Zara's mind raced, processing the implications. She had signed up for a diplomatic challenge, not a potential civil war, And yet, the thought of backing down now, of abandoning Salith and the future they were fighting for, was unthinkable. "So," Zara said, squaring her shoulders, "what's our next move?" Salith's eyes gleamed with a mix of relief and admiration. "We proceed as planned, but we must be more cautious than ever. The conclave is only days away, and I fear our opponents will not sit idly by while we make our case." As they dove back into their preparations with renewed intensity, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against a clock they couldn't see. The stakes had just gotten infinitely higher, and she had a sinking suspicion that the real challenges were only beginning. The day of the Centennial Conclave arrived with an air of barely contained tension. Zara stood before a mirror, hardly recognizing herself in the elegant attire Salith had provided. The deep blue fabric shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence, complementing the Zinthar's natural coloration while highlighting Zara's human features. "Remember," Salith said, adjusting Zara's collar, "we're not just selling the idea of a political alliance. We're presenting a vision of the future, one where different species can come together to create something greater than the sum of its parts." Zara nodded, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves. No pressure or anything, right? Salith's lips curved into a small smile. "You'll do fine. Just be yourself. Your intelligence and adaptability are our greatest assets." As they made their way to the grand reception hall, Zara marveled at the sheer diversity of beings surrounding them. Creatures of every conceivable shape and size moved through the corridors, their voices a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and rumbles. The reception hall itself was a marvel of engineering and artistry. Its vaulted ceilings seemed to stretch into infinity, holographic displays showcasing the wonders of 1,000 worlds. At the center stood a massive crystal structure, pulsing with an inner light that bathed the room in a soft, ever-changing glow. "The heart of the consortium," Salith explained in a hushed tone. "It's said to contain a piece of every member world, symbolizing our unity and shared purpose." Before Zara could respond, a booming voice cut through the ambient chatter. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Consortium, we welcome you to this historic gathering." All eyes turned to a raised platform where a being unlike any Zara had seen before stood. Its body seemed to be composed of pure energy, constantly shifting and reforming. "That's High Arbiter Zin," Salith whispered. "They oversee all major diplomatic functions within the consortium." As Zin continued their opening remarks, Zara felt the weight of countless gazes upon her. She was, after all, the only human in a sea of alien dignitaries. Some looks were curious, others wary, and a few outright hostile. "Steady," Salith murmured, sensing Zara's discomfort. "Remember your training. We have as much right to be here as anyone." As the formalities concluded, the real work began. Salith guided Zara through the crowd, making introductions and engaging in the delicate dance of interstellar diplomacy. Zara found herself drawing on every ounce of knowledge she'd absorbed over the past weeks, fielding questions about human culture, technology, and potential contributions to the consortium. To her surprise, she found herself enjoying the challenge. There was a thrill in matching wits with beings whose thought processes were often radically different from her own, and with each successful interaction, she could feel the tide of opinion slowly shifting in their favor. But not everyone was so easily swayed. "So," a gravelly voice interrupted as Zara was mid-conversation with a fascinated Quarian diplomat, "this is a human that has caused such a stir." Zara turned to find herself face to face with a Zinthar she didn't recognize. Unlike Salith's fluid grace, this being's movements were sharp, almost predatory. "Ambassador Krelovox," Salith said, their tone carefully neutral. "How good of you to join us." Krelovox's eyes narrowed, fixing Zara with a gaze that sent chills down her spine. "I must say, I fail to see what all the fuss is about. Humans are hardly more than up-jumped primates, barely out of their own solar system. What could they possibly offer the consortium that we don't already have?" Zara felt a flash of anger, but before she could retort, she caught Salith's subtle hand signal, a warning to tread carefully. Taking a deep breath, Zara met Krelvox's gaze steadily. With respect, Ambassador, it's precisely our upjumped nature that makes humans valuable. We've achieved in centuries what took other species millennia. Our adaptability, our drive to innovate, these are qualities that could bring fresh perspectives to the consortium. Krelvox's expression darkened, but before he could respond, a new voice joined the conversation. Well said, young human. Zara turned to find High Counselor Vexara approaching, their ancient eyes twinkling with interest. I've been observing your interactions this evening. You show promise. Krelvox bristled visibly. High Counselor, surely you can't be considering. I am considering many things, Krelvox, Vexara cut him off smoothly. Including the long-term survival of our people. Perhaps it's time we embraced new possibilities, rather than clinging to old prejudices. As Krelvox sputtered indignantly, Vexara turned back to Zara and Salith. Come, there are others I'd like you to meet. As they moved away, Zara caught a glimpse of Krelvox's face, contorted with barely contained rage. She had a sinking feeling they'd just made a powerful enemy. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, debates, and careful negotiations. Zara found herself at the center of intense discussions about the potential for human-Zinthar cooperation, from technological exchanges to joint colonization efforts. But beneath the veneer of diplomacy, she could sense undercurrents of tension. Whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when she approached. Furtive glances exchanged between certain factions. The opposition Salith had warned her about was clearly present, and they weren't about to give up without a fight. As the reception wound down, Salith pulled Zara aside, their expression grave. You've done well, but this is only the beginning. Tomorrow, the real negotiations start, and I fear our opponents will not limit themselves to words alone. Zara nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had come further than she ever thought possible, but the true test still lay ahead. As they made their way back to their quarters, Neva noticed the shadowy figure that detached itself from a darkened alcove, following at a discreet distance. The game was indeed afoot, and the stakes were higher than ever. The next morning dawned with an air of anticipation. As Zara and Salith made their way to the central chambers for the day's negotiations, the corridors of the Nexus hummed with barely contained energy. Delegates from across the galaxy hurried to and fro, their faces a mix of determination and anxiety. Remember, Salith murmured as they approached the massive doors of the negotiation chamber, today we make our formal proposal. Stay focused, and don't let them rattle you. Zara nodded, squaring her shoulders. She had spent hours memorizing their presentation, rehearsing answers to every possible objection. But as the doors swung open, revealing a sea of alien faces turned expectantly towards them, she felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. The negotiations began cordially enough. Various species presented their concerns and aspirations for the future of the consortium. Zara listened intently, noting the delicate balance of competing interests at play. It was like a vast, multidimensional game of chess, with alliances forming and dissolving moment by moment. Finally, it was their turn. Salith stepped forward, their voice ringing clear through the chamber. Esteemed colleagues, we stand at a crossroads. The challenges facing our consortium grow more complex with each passing cycle. It is time for bold action, for new perspectives. As Salith outlined their proposal for human integration into the consortium, Zara felt a swell of pride. The plan they had crafted together was elegant in its simplicity, addressing the concerns of multiple factions while offering tantalizing possibilities for growth and innovation. But just as they seemed to be gaining momentum, a familiar gravelly voice cut through the murmur of approval. This is madness. Krelvox thundered, rising from his seat. We cannot seriously be considering diluting the purity of our species, of compromising the very foundations of the consortium, for the sake of these primitives. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. Zara could see the uncertainty in many faces, the old fears and prejudices bubbling to the surface. Before Xalith could respond, Zara found herself stepping forward. With respect, Ambassador Krelvox, your fears are misplaced. Humans don't seek to replace or diminish any species in the consortium. We offer partnership, not domination. Our adaptability, our drive to innovate, these are qualities that can benefit all. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of countless alien gazes upon her. Look at your own history. The consortium was founded on the principle that diversity breeds strength. By working together, by combining our unique strengths, we've achieved wonders that no single species could have dreamed of alone. Why stop now? Why close ourselves off to new possibilities, new potential, out of fear? A hush fell over the chamber. For a moment, Zara feared she had overstepped. Then, to her amazement, a smattering of applause began, growing into a wave of approval. But Krelvox was not so easily swayed. His eyes blazed with fury as he jabbed a finger towards Zara. Pretty words, human, but actions speak louder. Tell me, how can we trust the intentions of a species that can't even keep peace on its own world? How do we know this isn't some elaborate ploy to infiltrate and weaken the consortium from within? Before Zara could formulate a response, chaos erupted. The lights in the chamber flickered and died, plunging everything into darkness. Shouts of confusion and alarm filled the air. Zara felt a strong hand grasp her arm, Xalith, pulling her close. "We need to move," they hissed in her ear. "Now." As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, Zara caught glimpses of shadowy figures moving with purpose through the panicked crowd. This was no mere technical malfunction. They had nearly reached the exit when a bolt of energy sizzled past Zara's head, impacting the wall with a thunderous crack. "Down!" Xalith shouted, pulling Zara to the floor. More energy bolts crisscrossed the chamber, that eerie glow illuminating scenes of chaos. Delegates scrambled for cover, while security forces struggled to locate the source of the attack. "This way," Xalith urged, guiding Zara towards a hidden panel in the wall. As they slipped through, Zara caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd, Krelvox, his expression a mix of triumph and malice. They emerged into a narrow service corridor, the sounds of battle muffled behind them. "What the hell is going on?" Zara gasped, her heart pounding. Xalith's face was grim. "It appears our opponents have decided to take more direct action. We need to get to a secure location and contact High Counselor Vexara. This attack goes far beyond mere political maneuvering." As they hurried through the labyrinthine passages of the Nexus, Zara's mind raced. The scale of the conspiracy was staggering. This wasn't just about human integration, it was an attempt to destabilize the entire consortium. They had nearly reached Xalith's private chambers when a figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path. Zara's blood ran cold as she recognized the newcomer. It was Xalith, or rather, a perfect copy. The doppelganger's lips curved into a cruel smile. "Did you really think it would be so easy?" it said, its voice an unsettling echo of Xalith's melodious tones. Zara felt Xalith tense beside her. "Zarkon," they growled, "I should have known you'd be behind this." The false Xalith, Zarkon, laughed. "Oh, I'm just a small part of something much larger, dear sibling. The consortium has grown weak, complacent. It's time for a new order, one that recognizes the true superiority of the Zinthar." As Zarkon spoke, more figures emerged from the shadows surrounding them. Zara's hand inched towards the small energy pistol Xalith had insisted she carry, her mind racing for a way out of this trap. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, a new determination took hold. She hadn't come this far, hadn't fought so hard, to give up now. Whatever came next, she and Xalith would face it together. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just their fate, but the future of the entire galactic consortium. Surrounded by Zarkon and his conspirators, Zara's mind raced. She glanced at Xalith, seeing the same mix of determination and concern in their eyes. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but giving up wasn't an option. "You're making a mistake, Zarkon," Sarlith said, their voice steady despite the tension. "This path leads only to destruction, for the Zinfar and the entire consortium." Zarkon's laugh was cold and bitter. "Always the diplomat, aren't you? Can't you see? The old ways have failed us. It's time for the Zinfar to take our rightful place as rulers, not mediators." As Zarkon monologued, Zora's eyes darted around, taking in their surroundings. The narrow corridor, the positioning of their opponents, the subtle variations in the wall panels. An idea began to form. "You know," Zora said, injecting a note of casual interest into her voice, "for a species so proud of their superiority, you're making a pretty basic mistake." Zarkon's eyes narrowed. "Oh? And what might that be, human?" Zora allowed herself a small smile. "You're forgetting why you wanted human DNA in the first place. We're adaptable. We think outside the box. And most importantly," she locked eyes with Sarlith, hoping they'd catch her meaning, "we're really good at causing distractions." In one fluid motion, Zara drew her energy pistol and fired, not at their attackers, but at a specific panel on the wall. The shot connected, and suddenly the corridor was filled with billowing steam as coolant lines ruptured. Chaos erupted. Zora and Sarlith moved as one, using the confusion to their advantage. They fought their way through the disoriented attackers, Sarlith's shape-shifting abilities proving invaluable as they confounded their pursuers. As they ran, Sarlith spoke urgently. "We need to get to the central control room. If Zarkon's coup is as far-reaching as I fear, they may be trying to seize control of the Nexus itself." They battled their way through the station, encountering pockets of resistance and loyal security forces. The entire Nexus had devolved into a battleground, with the fate of galactic civilization hanging in the balance. Finally, they reached the heavily fortified doors of the central control room. Inside, they could hear the sounds of a fierce struggle. "Ready?" Sarlith asked, their hand poised over the door controls. Zora nodded, gripping her weapon tightly. "Let's finish this." The doors slid open, revealing a scene of chaos. High Counselor Vexara and a handful of loyal Zinfar were engaged in a standoff with Krelvox and his supporters. In the center of the room, the heart of the consortium pulsed erratically, its usual steady glow now flickering and unstable. "Ah, the final players arrive," Krelvox sneered, his weapon trained on Vexara. "Come to witness the dawn of a new era." "Stand down, Krelvox," Sarlith demanded. "You're tearing apart everything we've built." But Krelvox was beyond reason. With a snarl, he lunged for the main control panel. "The consortium will be reborn in our image." Time seemed to slow. Zora saw Krelvox's hand, reaching for controls, saw the horror on Vexara's face, saw Sarlith moving to intercept. And in that moment, she understood what she had to do. Drawing on every scrap of knowledge she'd absorbed over the past weeks, Zora sprinted towards the heart. Her hands flew over the ancient controls, inputting a sequence she prayed would work. The heart's pulsing intensified, filling the room with blinding light. Zora felt a surge of energy course through her body, unlike anything she'd ever experienced. When the light faded, everyone in the room stood frozen, staring at Zora in shock. She looked down at her hands, seeing the familiar shimmer of Zinthar skin. "Impossible," Krelvox breathed. Vexara's eyes widened in understanding. "The heart, it recognized your intent. It's given you the ability to shapeshift." Zora focused, feeling her body shift back to its human form. "Not just me," she said, looking around the room. "All of us. Human, Zinthar, every species in the consortium. The ability to understand each other, truly and completely." The implications hung heavy in the air. With this gift, the old barriers between species could crumble. The fears and prejudices that had fueled the conflict suddenly seemed petty and small. Krelvox's weapon clattered to the floor as the fight drained out of him. All around the room, conspirators and loyalists alike lowered their weapons, the enormity of what had just occurred sinking in. In the days that followed, the consortium underwent a transformation more profound than anyone could have imagined. The ability to literally walk in another species' shoes fostered a level of empathy and understanding never before possible. Zara found herself at the center of it all, working alongside Thalith and Vexara to reshape the consortium into something greater than it had ever been. The human adaptability she had championed, combined with the wisdom and experience of the older races, opened up new frontiers of cooperation and discovery. As she stood on a balcony overlooking the vast expanse of the Nexus, Zara felt Salith's presence beside her. "You've done it," Salith said softly. "You've saved not just the Zinfar, but the entire consortium, and you've given us all a future brighter than we could have dreamed." Zara smiled, thinking back to that dingy freighter where her journey had begun. "We did it together," she corrected, "and this is just the beginning." As they looked out at the stars, Zara felt a sense of limitless possibility. The universe stretched out before them, full of wonders waiting to be discovered, and for the first time in a long while, the future of the Galactic Consortium looked brighter than ever before.